The night sky over eastern Ukraine erupted like a scene from a sci-fi thriller. Hundreds of Russian Lancet and Shahed-type drones swarmed toward Ukrainian lines, their infrared signatures flooding NATO radar screens. Within minutes, the airspace turned into a digital battlefield where algorithms, not generals, dictated survival. Reports from Reuters and BBC confirmed that this was one of the largest drone offensives of early 2025, a coordinated strike blending Iranian-built Shaheds and domestically assembled Lancets aimed at crippling Ukraine's ammunition depots. But something had changed since the first chaotic months of the war. Ukraine's new layered air defense system, developed with US and Polish advisors, wasn't just shooting drones down, it was learning from them. Using AI-assisted pattern recognition and NATO's Link 16 network integration, each intercepted drone fed data into a shared system that adjusted real-time intercept trajectories for other sectors. As a senior analyst from Defense News put it, Ukraine turned the battlefield into a learning organism. Every destroyed drone makes the next interception faster. Moments later, an F-16 Fighting Falcon on loan from the U.S. Air National Guard, now under Ukrainian command, appeared on radar. Deployed to defend a convoy moving toward the Dnipro River, the pilots spotted a cluster of drones closing in on an artillery column. According to Jane's Defense Weekly, the jet engaged at medium altitude using AIM-9X missiles modified with an updated proximity fuse to optimize detonation against slow, low-flying targets. It was a textbook demonstration of how Western air power adapted to drone warfare's asymmetry. Below Ukrainian FPV first-person view, kamikaze drones raced to intercept the remaining swarm. Operators sitting in concealed bunkers near Zaporizhzhia guided these small quadcopters, manually weaving between trees before slamming into incoming Shaheds. For every one lost, a new one launched within seconds, creating what experts now call micro-intercepts. DW analysts described it as an entirely new layer of electronic attrition warfare, where even hobbyist drones became lethal tools. In the chaos, Russian electronic warfare systems attempted to jam Ukrainian controls. However, updated US-made anti-jam transceivers delivered discreetly under the latest NATO military aid package neutralized most interference. The Pentagon confirmed through Reuters that these systems had tripled Ukraine's success rate in close-range interceptions within the first month of deployment. As the smoke cleared, dozens of drones lay scattered across the steppe. The Russian convoy, the apparent target, had already shifted positions, forcing Ukraine's defensive network to readjust instantly. The scene underscored a brutal truth of modern warfare: control of the electromagnetic spectrum was now as decisive as artillery. Western military experts warned that this engagement represented the AI tipping point of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. It was no longer about who had more steel or troops, but who could think and adapt faster. In a broader context, NATO observers noted how lessons from Ukraine's drone defense directly influenced US Pacific Command exercises against potential Chinese swarm tactics. If drone warfare can evolve this quickly in Europe, what might happen when these technologies collide in the Pacific or the Middle East? At dawn, the battlefield fell eerily silent, only the faint hum of reconnaissance drones breaking the still air. Then in a flash, a Russian T-72B3 tank emerged from a tree-lined turret glinting under the morning sun. It was a perfect target for what has now become Ukraine's most feared defensive weapon, the Javelin anti-tank guided missile. From a concealed firing position, Ukrainian troops locked onto the tank using the Javelin's infrared seeker. Seconds later, the missile streaked skyward before plunging almost vertically into the T-72's thinner top armor. The explosion sent a shockwave across the valley, a brutal reminder that in 2025, heavy armor no longer guarantees survival. Defense analysts from Jane's confirmed that over 60% of Russian tank losses this year were inflicted by precision munitions, not traditional artillery. Yet the duel didn't end there. As the smoke rose, Russian FPV drones armed with RPG warheads descended on Ukrainian infantry positions. These low-cost suicide drones, costing less than $1,000 each, were launched from modified motorcycles, turning mobility and surprise into weapons. Ukraine responded in kind, deploying counter-FPVs fitted with fragmentation grenades, creating what BBC described as drone-on-drone duels straight out of a dystopian future. Such engagements are rewriting the doctrine of close combat. Where soldiers once relied on cover and camouflage, they now depend on signal suppression, heat masking, and real-time drone feeds. Western military instructors embedded with Ukrainian brigades have reportedly introduced electronic camouflage devices, wearable emitters that distort drone sensors, an innovation rapidly spreading across NATO training programs. Meanwhile, reports from Defense News reveal that Ukrainian engineers have refined fragmentation payloads on their FPV drones drones, optimizing blast radius against soft targets like motorcycles, trucks, or open infantry. This small innovation has shifted tactical math. One skilled operator can halt an entire Russian advance, forcing commanders to abandon conventional formations. On the Russian side, adaptation is equally fierce. DW reports that newer T-90M tanks are now equipped with soft-kill active protection systems capable of blinding incoming missiles. However, Javelins and European-made NLAWs still find vulnerabilities, particularly in turret joints and side armor. The result? A grim technological race where survival hinges on software updates and electronic resilience rather than raw armor thickness. This duel between mechanized might and portable precision reflects a global trend. In Gaza and northern Israel, similar FPV tactics have been observed by Al Jazeera's defense correspondent's small drones scouting ahead of infantry marking coordinates for mortar fire within seconds. The parallel underscores how quickly warfare technology transcends regions and doctrines. Back in Ukraine, the burnt remains of the T-72 lay smoldering beside its destroyed support vehicles. Each wreck captured by satellite and analyzed by NATO's ISR division becomes another data point, another lesson shaping next-generation warfare. Every strike is not just destruction, said a RAND analyst quoted by Reuters. It's an upload of battlefield intelligence into the global military cloud. But amid all this precision and automation, one haunting question remains in wars increasingly fought by drones and algorithms: how long before the human soldier becomes obsolete? Thunder rolled across the open plains as Ukrainian armor advanced toward a ridgeline overlooking Russian artillery positions. The lead vehicle, a T-64BV modernized with Western thermal optics and reactive armor, halted abruptly as an incoming shell burst barely 50 meters away. It was the start of a deadly duel between tank and artillery, one that would test not just firepower, but timing, coordination, and technological nerve. Moments later, the T-64 locked eyes through its digital fire control system on a distant T-72 that had just revealed its position by firing. With one precise 125mm shell, the Ukrainian tank struck the enemy's turret ring, triggering an explosion that tore the vehicle apart. Drone footage later confirmed a catastrophic kill, validating the tank's upgraded targeting module sourced from a NATO defense integration program. According to Defense News, this system improved first hit probability by 48%, a margin that has made older Soviet armor dangerously outdated. But the victory was short-lived, as the Ukrainian tank repositioned a Russian Grad multiple rocket launcher, began its retaliatory salvo. In under 30 seconds, 40 unguided rockets screamed overhead, saturating the area in a storm of fire and shrapnel. From afar, a BBC field team recorded the distinctive ripple fire pattern, a devastating spectacle, but also a telltale signature. Every launch revealed the Grad's coordinates to orbiting UAVs. This is where technology tipped the scales again. Within 2 minutes, a Ukrainian reconnaissance drone relayed the Grad's GPS position to an artillery command unit. The data passed through NATO's battlefield network, where automated fire control calculated the optimal counterbattery trajectory. Before the Grad's crew could reload, a pair of Excalibur 155mm precision shells landed squarely on the launcher trucks. The resulting explosion consumed not just the Grad, but its ammunition, igniting secondary detonations visible from 20 kilometers away. This cycle detect fire destroy has become the rhythm of 21st century artillery combat. No longer does endurance win the day, it's about exposure time. As a German defense analyst told DW, if you launch rockets, you have 2 minutes to live before counterfire finds you. Ukrainian forces have taken this further by integrating drone spotters directly with mobile artillery batteries, cutting the targeting loop to under 90 seconds. This fusion of sensor software and speed has transformed Ukraine's aging tank brigades into precision strike platforms. Jane's Defense Weekly reports that Western-supplied fire control systems like the French Atlas module have given legacy armor near digital parity, with new Russian T-90M units at a fraction of the cost. Meanwhile, the Russians have responded by deploying camouflage drones, cheap quadcopters that mimic radar signatures to draw counterfire away from real assets. It's a clever adaptation, but one increasingly countered by AI recognition tools that differentiate genuine heat emissions from decoys. As artillery duels intensify, the risk to logistics grows. The slightest delay in ammunition resupply can cripple a frontline unit, and both sides are now targeting convoys more aggressively than ever. Satellite data from NATO intelligence shows that Russia has lost over 900 trucks in rear area drone strikes since January 2025, proof that logistics, once considered the quiet backbone of war, has become the front line itself. As the T-64 crew surveyed the burning ridge, the message was clear. Victory no longer depends solely on the size of your guns, but on the speed of your data. So as technology keeps accelerating, could future battles be decided before the first human even pulls the trigger? The remains of the destroyed Grad launcher still burned as Ukrainian engineers moved in to analyze the wreckage. What they found told a story not just of combat, but of evolution. The launcher wasn't Russian built. It bore serial markings linking it to North Korean manufacturing, one of the hundreds of BM-21 variants reportedly transferred to Moscow through covert logistical routes since late 2024. According to Reuters, Pyongyang has supplied both rockets and launchers to compensate for Russia's dwindling domestic production, bringing new layers of unpredictability to the war's technological theater. But despite its foreign origin, the Grad's design philosophy remained old-school quantity over precision. Each truck could fire 40 122mm rockets in 20 seconds, blanketing an area of nearly a football field. It was devastating if you couldn't be found, yet in 2025, nothing on the battlefield truly stays hidden. Ukraine's counterbattery units equipped with US-made AN/TPQ-53 radar arrays and a web of micro-UAVs turned every launch plume into a digital signature. These systems detect the origin of enemy rockets within seconds, feeding data directly into NATO's command grid. The BBC reported that this real-time integration reduced response latency by 72% compared to 2022, a figure that has effectively neutralized the shock factor of massed fire. When the Grad battery fired that morning, its fate was sealed. The radar system tracked each rocket's trajectory, triangulated the launch origin, and immediately transmitted coordinates to a waiting drone operator. The resulting Ukrainian FPV strike hit the launcher's ammunition crate, setting off a chain of detonations that ripped through the convoy. DW later aired footage showing Grad rockets flying erratically into the sky as sympathetic explosions turned the field into a burning labyrinth of twisted metal. Experts at Defense News pointed out that this engagement showcased the fundamental vulnerability of unguided rocket systems in the era of persistent surveillance. The BM-21's value lies in Volume 1, analysts said, but volume today equals visibility. You can't hide 40 launch plumes anymore. Still, Russia has been experimenting with hybrid Grads fitted with GPS modules allegedly supplied by Chinese intermediaries to enhance accuracy, but these makeshift upgrades often fail under electronic warfare conditions. Ukrainian jamming units backed by American-made Vampire counter-drone systems have repeatedly disrupted Russian targeting uplinks, causing rockets to veer off course or self-destruct mid-air. At the tactical level, the destruction of the Grad battery had cascading effects. Ukrainian infantry could now advance with minimal artillery harassment, and reconnaissance drones used the opening to probe deeper into Russian-held territory. NATO observers noted that such small victories multiplied hundreds of times are gradually eroding Moscow's firepower advantage. Beyond the battlefield, Western strategists see this as a turning point for NATO doctrine. The Grad's downfall reaffirms that legacy saturation systems, whether Russian, North Korean, or Iranian, cannot survive in a transparent, sensor-dominated battlespace. The future, as Jane's Defense Weekly concluded, belongs to modular networked launchers capable of firing precision munitions with low electromagnetic signatures. As night fell, the Ukrainian operators watching from their command screen saw one final flare, an ammunition truck detonating in a shockwave that lit the horizon. The men remained silent for a moment, aware that they had just witnessed more than a tactical win. It was the symbolic end of an era. If visibility now equals vulnerability, then what happens to nations still relying on Cold War doctrines in an age ruled by sensors, satellites, and swarming drones? Night descended over the steppe, but the war refused to sleep. Through thermal lenses and drone feeds, the dark glowed with electronic life vehicles, heat trails, and flickers of muzzle flashes. Somewhere north of Avdiivka, a Russian 2S-3 Ekatsia self-propelled gun opened fire its 150mm shells arching toward Ukrainian positions. Within seconds, it was spotted by a quadcopter hovering 5 kilometers away, transmitting the exact coordinates to an FPV strike team. The Ukrainian response was swift and silent. A single FPV drone, its warhead modified with a shaped charge from a decommissioned RPG-7, raced low across the field, weaving through electronic noise. When it reached the Ekatsia, the impact pierced the rear armor, detonating propellant charges inside the gun. The explosion was caught live by a second drone, the footage later analyzed by Defense News as a textbook example of software-guided counter-battery warfare. But this wasn't just about luck or timing, it was code. Western software engineers working under NATO's Defense Innovation Accelerator have been quietly training Ukraine's drone operators to use semi-autonomous strike algorithms. These programs calculate attack vectors, wind drift, and signal latency, automatically allowing operators to focus on broader tactical awareness. According to BBC defense correspondent Jonathan Beale, this human-in-the-loop AI has slashed Ukrainian FPV losses by nearly 40% since February 2025. Meanwhile, Russian electronic warfare crews fought back fiercely. They deployed pole-mounted Psylocke jammers designed to cut FPV control links and blind GPS-guided munitions. Yet Ukraine's new quads operated on frequency-hopping systems, co-developed with U.S. private contractors, making them nearly immune to single-band jamming. It's the democratization of counterbattery fire, DW reported. A $3,000 drone can neutralize a $1.5 million artillery piece. Further down the road, another battle unfolded. A Russian BMP-2 infantry fighting vehicle tried to outmaneuver the drones by diving into a ravine, but its engine heat betrayed it. A loitering munition guided by infrared recognition software dove directly into its engine bay. The vehicle caught fire, forcing the crew to abandon it. Moments later, a second FPV drone delivered the coup de grace. Night operations have become the new frontier. With American-supplied night vision gear and Polish thermal imagers, Ukrainian operators now conduct 60% of their strikes after dusk. The cover of darkness once protected Russian movements. Now, it only conceals their defeat. Satellite data from Reuters confirms that Ukraine's nighttime strike rate has doubled since spring 2025, largely due to improved AI-assisted drone navigation. The strategic implications ripple far beyond Ukraine. Pentagon officials view these engagements as real-world laboratories for future NATO warfare, where machine learning, not manpower, determines lethality. The U.S. Army's Project Maven, initially tested in Syria, is now incorporating Ukrainian combat data to refine AI-assisted targeting for European and Indo-Pacific theaters. As one Rand Corporation analyst told Al Jazeera, what's happening in eastern Ukraine is not just a regional conflict, it's a global rehearsal for autonomous warfare. For the soldiers on the ground, though, it's simply survival by adaptation. Each FPV sortie represents not just a kill, but a coded message to every outdated weapons designer: evolve or vanish. And if $3,000 drones can now outperform multi-million-dollar tanks and artillery, how long before the definition of superpower itself changes? By sunrise, smoke still hung over the battlefield, curling into the pale light like ghosts of an older war. What began as isolated strikes had become a seamless machine of destruction, an ecosystem where drones, data, and human intuition fused into one lethal rhythm. This was the new reality of modern combat detect fix finish exploit. Every engagement now began not with a gunshot, but a sensor ping. A satellite or drone spotted a target, algorithms cross-referenced its signature, and within seconds, artillery or FPVs were inbound. Ukraine's networked command grid, backed by U.S. and Polish data centers, had turned the conflict into what Defense News calls a living kill chain. It was a system capable of processing battlefield data faster than any conventional army could react. But this efficiency came with new vulnerabilities. Russian EW electronic warfare teams adapted targeting Ukraine's communication relays and attempting to jam-link 16 transmissions between NATO reconnaissance aircraft and Ukrainian artillery controllers. Yet the US Space Force and NATO Cyber Command countered with frequency-hopping encryption, maintaining connectivity under fire. According to Reuters, this invisible cyber duel now consumes as much planning time as traditional operations. As both sides race to dominate the electromagnetic spectrum, logistics has become the new Achilles heel. The Pentagon estimates that over 70% of Russian losses in 2025 stem from precision strikes on supply lines rather than frontline clashes. In return, Russia's Lancet and Duran 2 drones have shifted focus toward Ukrainian fuel convoys and rail junctions. The war once fought for territory is now waged against movement itself. Western experts see the trend as a warning. This isn't just Ukraine's war, it's the prototype of all future conflicts, said retired U.S. Air Force Colonel Jack Parsons in a DW interview. Every military is watching how fast Ukraine can cycle from detection to destruction. The lesson is clear: whoever controls the data loop controls the war. In Washington, President Donald Trump's defense advisors are leveraging these findings to accelerate drone integration into the U.S. Army's new multi-domain task force. Meanwhile, NATO's Defense College in Rome has begun adapting Ukraine's sensor-to-shooter doctrine into standardized training modules, ensuring the alliance can replicate similar operational tempo in future conflicts, whether in the Baltic, the South China Sea, or the Persian Gulf. On the ground, however, Ukraine's soldiers feel the cost of progress. Continuous operations, electronic fatigue, and mental overload are becoming silent enemies. Reports from The Guardian and BBC describe crews operating for 18-hour shifts under constant signal interference, their every move tracked and jammed. For them, war has become both mechanical and merciless. Still, innovation pushes forward. AI-assisted targeting is being tested to predict Russian troop movements based on fuel consumption, and autonomous hunter-killer drones now patrol border skies without human guidance. Jane's Defense Weekly calls it the dawn of algorithmic warfare, where success depends less on bravery and more on bandwidth. For NATO strategists, the broader implication is sobering. The West is witnessing not just a battle for Ukraine, but a transformation of military logic itself. The side with faster adaptation wins, not the side with more weapons. And as smoke clears over the charred fields of Donetsk, one question remains for every general, engineer, and citizen watching this unfold in a future where machines decide faster than humans. Who will truly command the next war, the soldier or the software? This six-part analysis traced the evolution of modern warfare through Ukraine's defense against Russian offensives in 2025, where technology, not manpower, dictated the outcome. It began with the largest recorded drone swarm strike, showcasing AI-enhanced F-16 intercepts and decentralized FPV defense. The story progressed through tank duels, Grad artillery destruction, and counterbattery strikes, all redefined by speed, precision, and software. Each engagement revealed a battlefield ruled by sensors, algorithms, and constant data flow, where exposure meant instant destruction. Drawing from Western experts and real-time reports from Reuters, BBC, DW, and Defense News, the narrative underscored how Ukraine's use of AI and NATO-backed systems set a precedent for global military doctrine. Strategically, these developments ripple through NATO and U.S. defense policy, shaping the next generation of autonomous warfare. Yet behind the innovation lies a human cost, mental exhaustion, and the erosion of traditional soldiering. As the war enters its most digital phase, the core question remains: when decisions are made by algorithms and targets found by code, does human judgment still matter, or is the future of combat already beyond human